Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Oh, that's me. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. Let me bring up the chat. And let me minimize this. All right. All right, so in Canvas, let's take a look at the syllabus. Okay. All right, so you should be getting almost done with the P1, right? These last week, this week and next week will be just focused on getting you going with the project. We started late last week. We started talking about the project and how to what was the expectation of the first P1 project related assignment, and which focuses mostly on doing the preliminary design of the database and also creating a first draft of the actual database, right? The tables and how they're related to one another, foreign keys, primary keys, enumerated data types, things like that, and perhaps populating it with some dummy data just to validate that that it was going to work for you. So today we're going to be talking about the second part of that, right? You should be finishing that up. I am giving everybody over the weekend so that they can wrap up. Looks like most everybody was done, but just want to make sure everybody's just cleaning that up. If it's not exactly the data model that you want, that you're not quite sure, that's fine. You can come back to P1, just submit what you have. All right, if you want to wrap up, and just do a little more over the weekend, that's fine. You can always come back to that design and make changes. I would expect that as you start actually building the application based on that database, my expectation is that you're going to have to go back and change a few things, right? Maybe you'll need an extra field, or maybe you'll need an extra table, or maybe another relationship. You'll need maybe a mapping table, and that you're probably going to discover that as you create your first prototype, right? Once you start fixing it and creating it and using it, you're going to realize, oh, I'm missing a table here, I'm missing a field here. Where are we going to store this part? And that's part of the learning experience, right? Of usually in a real world environment, you would go through a prototyping phase where you create a small, low budget, low fidelity model of this, right? And then you have real people actually use it and give you feedback on saying, well, what do you think, blah, blah, blah. And then that feeds into the design again, right? And you probably will have a couple of iterations of that. We don't have that. We don't have the luxury of having multiple iterations and things like that. So I would expect that once you start doing P2 and P3 and you're finally designing it and implementing it, you will have to go back and tweak it a little bit, and that's fine, right? So don't fret that you're not completely done with P1. Submit what you've got and start implementing some models, some UI, and whatnot. Okay, and that's what I was thinking that was going to be the focus of today. What we would expect you to be doing with P2, perhaps show you how you would use the code that we've already given you as a template. Again, what I'm giving you is a template based on Java and doing React. But as we've been mentioning for the last month or so, don't feel that that you need to explicitly be using MySQL or Java or React. Right? Again, for the database, if you prefer to use Firebase, or if you prefer to use Mongo, or Postgre, or some other database that maybe you've gone on a co-op and you feel comfortable using that, and then go ahead, right? Or if you've done some a little bit of UI work in other languages, again, it's more open-ended. The project is much more open-ended, and letting you explore how to apply many of the concepts that we've been learning in this course. So today I wanted to focus on P2, which is this one right here. All right, so I want to go over P2. Again, this is a project-related assignment, and it somewhat gives you a guidance on what you should be doing for completing your project. This is a team project, team assignment. Did I say here was a team assignment? Wait a minute. Submission, assignment, require peer, group assignment. This is a group assignment. The selected groups, I think all of these, I guess. Yeah. Let me save that. Yeah, it's a project assignment. It's a group assignment. So this 3 or 4 of you are going to be working on this. Okay. So yes, we're going to go over this. Before we go into details, I did want to give everybody a chance and weigh in and give some feedback. How's everybody doing? Is everybody? Looks like everybody's working on P1. I had a lot of questions on the office hours about projects. Any concerns, worries, questions in general? Anything?
Hey, Professor. Are we likely to get any feedback on P1 before proceeding, or should we go to office hours if we're curious about anything?
Yeah, no, there's not going to be a chance for us to give you feedback for you to wait and then just continue. So I would just go on, keep going. If you see that you have a user and 2 domain objects, you have the absolute minimum that you need for the project. I see that. I know that some of you have come to my office hours and were way over ambitious, and folks had 2 users, and we have 3 classes, and like 2 many to many, and several one to many, and there was way over ambitious. I think one of the things that was a recurring theme was that keep it simple, keep it to the minimum, at least the minimum that we are asking you for, right? We're asking you 1 user and 2 domain objects. Don't get over ambitious, and then you run out of time and you won't be able to finish. So I would focus on the minimum valuable product, right? That we're asking you for. If it's 4 of you and you find that you could go a little further than is what's required, then sure. If you see that one of you is idle, perhaps definitely try it and play around with that extra class or extra relationship that you wanted to consider. But I think a general feedback that I've seen from office hours, I would say that keep it simple, keep it to the what's required, and make that quality, right? Make it as good as possible. And again, if you have more time, then sure, go beyond that. And also the focus on the relationship that we're asking you, right? We're asking you for a relationship between a user and a domain. We need at least, and also a relationship between a domain and a domain. And also we're asking you that there has to be at least one to many. There has to be at least 1 many to many, and an enumerated data type, right? So those are the minimum requirements. Please focus on that. Right. And again, if you can go beyond, that's great. Okay. Yeah. So that was a general feedback from what I've seen. I've had quite a few students come to my office hours for feedback, and feel free to come by and ask for my opinion. It doesn't have to be during office hours. If you want to catch me at other times, I'm also available. Please, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can do a one-on-one. Let's see, is there a question on the chat? For UI in Python, I do use a couple of UI tools for Python. I used to play with PyQt, but there's a couple more like Trinker and WX Python for UI development. Also for an overall framework that is a very popular. Django is a very popular Python framework that kind of has everything, and that is definitely also a great option as well. I haven't done Python in over like, I don't know, 10 years, so I'm not quite sure where it's at right now, but I'm sure it has moved on beyond what I've been. I played around with it way back when. Yeah, Django has both the UI and also has the back end. It has the data modeling, the object relational mapping as well. So it's kind of like a one-rounded package that has pretty much everything you need. All right, so let's go over this project related assignment P2. So the focus of this assignment is, it's assuming that you've completed the first assignment P1, and you have made a first pass at the design. You've identified one user, you have identified two domain objects, you've created a class diagram, you've created an initial relational model or a non-relational model. It depends on whether you went the Mongo worlds or the Firebase world, or if you went the relational world. So you have actual data, and it could be dummy data. It doesn't have to be lots and lots of data, but you have the data model, you have the relational model. So here the next step is, okay, and I need to start communicating with that database, right, and start actually building something around it. Let's see, there's a question on the chat. The project asks us to reify. So should the many-to-many relationship have a many mapping class of sorts? Well, that's so it depends. It depends on whether you went the relational world or if you went the non-relational world. Right? If you went the relational world, then yes, definitely you have to reify. You have to substitute it with a mapping table. Okay. If you went with the non-relational world, remember that in Mongo you have arrays, right? You can have fields that are referencing each other, and instead of having an intermediate mapping table, you can have a collection pointing using an array to point to lots of records on the other side, right? And vice versa. You can have on the many side, you can have references to the other many side, and from that many side, you can have other references back to the main side. So you have two options to do that, right? Or in either way, whether you go relational or non-relational, you could always fall back on a mapping table if it's relational, and a mapping collection if it's non-relational. Okay, but yes, usually the easiest thing would be to have a mapping something, right, that maps records from one collection or table to the other table or collection. That's the easiest thing to do. Right. So assuming that you have the relational model, it's now time to a data model, right, in your application, right? Whether you choose to go Java classes or JavaScript or C# classes or whatever language you choose to decide, you need to have a software representation of that data, right? We covered two ways of doing that, right? We covered first the Java way of doing that with entity classes, right? These were just plain old Java classes that had private properties. It had setters and getters. It had a default constructor, and we annotated, right, at entity, at ID, blah blah blah, right? So that was our software representation of the data. We also showed you how to do the data modeling using Mongo, right? For that, we used a library called Mongoose, And Mongoose allow you to declare a schema at the application level, at the software level, right? Where it allow you to provide the properties, their data types, and also create a low-level model that provided all the CRUD operations that allow you to find all, find one, find by ID, create, update, delete, right? And we showed you how to implement that as well. Okay. So yeah, we showed you two particular languages. You are free to implement your data model, your software data model, right? Either whatever language or infrastructure you prefer. Certainly Python, Java, we covered it here in class. JavaScript, we also covered here in class. C# if you've done any .NET, or any other infrastructure that you feel comfortable with. So it's fairly open-ended. So you'll need for the one class, at least for the one class that represents your user, and the two classes that represent your domain classes, right? At least those, okay, for this assignment, for at least that one user class and for the two domain classes, you need to create two things. Okay, you'll need to create the model class, right? And if you're using Java, this would be your Java class that represents your user, right? Your faculty, your teacher, your students, with all the fields, right? The first name, last name, social security number, username, password, date of birth, right? So the data model, the software data model representation of what you're storing in the database, right? You'll also have to annotate it so that the class is representing some table, right? Either using table, at table name, blah, 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 right? Or if you're using Mongo, that would be, collection and then the name of the collection. And so again, so if you're using Java, this would be a Java class. If you're using Mongo, this would be a schema, right? Alongside with a Mongoose model, okay? So that you need to do that for the one user and for the two domain objects, at least two domain objects. So this is the minimum, right? This is the absolute minimum, one user and two domain objects. Okay. You also need to create a DAO, right? And the DAO needs to provide at least the following functions. Okay, let me make this bigger. Can I make it smaller? There we go. So it has to provide at least the following functions. Okay, it needs to have a create method, right? Or function, create function, find all, a find, update, and delete. Okay, now it should be called find, and then whatever model you have. So this could be, I'm sorry, create. Sorry, this would be create playlist, or create song, or create user, create faculty, create student, whatever your model is, whatever your model that you decided here. Okay, so for each one of these guys, you need to create a DAO that will host the following names, functions, right? Create faculty, find all faculty, find faculty by ID, update faculty, delete faculty. Okay, if you have a song Java class, right, then it would be create song, find all songs, find song by ID, update song, delete song. Okay, and they should take as arguments whatever model you need to implement it, right? So for create song, it would take argument a song object, right? Find all songs. They would return some array or list or collection of songs. Find song by ID, right? It would have to, you pass in an ID and it would return the record or document, right, whose ID is equal to that ID parameter, right, from the table or collection that you've implemented earlier. Okay, same thing for update and delete. Okay, so in the end, you're going to have three models, at least three, one user and two domain objects, and you're going to have three DAOs. Okay, all right. Okay, so this DAO needs to be accessible through HTTP. I guess I should mention that. I should mention that. is blah 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 blah. The DAO, the DAO methods or functions must be accessible through an HTTP. Well, actually, this depends on how you're implementing this, right? Through an HTTP. Yeah, so that depends how you're implementing it, right? So if you're doing a desktop application, then you don't really need that. Okay. All right, so that's the back end, right? That's the model, the data. Excellent. So once you have that, you're gonna have to create a user interface, right? Now the user interface needs to provide the capability for users to be able to interact with your data, right? The users need to be able to create, read, update, and delete, right? Meaning they need to be able to issue CRUD operations, right, to the records that are stored in the database, right? For the infrastructure, you can choose to, if you're using Python, you can try out Twinker, WX Python, or PyQt. If you're using Java, you can use Swing. I believe they cover Swing in some of the courses before this course, so you might have already played around with Swing. If you want to use Swing, that's fine. Or if you're using JavaScript, you can use React or Angular or jQuery. There's quite a few options as well. Again, that's up to you, right? Whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to be covering React, right, and Java here. Okay, Java and React. And you're free to use whatever I am going to give you today. You can use it, you can throw it away. It's up to you. But the principles are going to be the same. Whatever infrastructure you end up using, you'll realize that the principles and concepts are identical regardless what infrastructure you end up using. Okay, so what are you going to build for the user interface? All right. So for every user class, well, there's only one user class, and for the two domain classes that you've implemented here, right? So here you've implemented one user class, one user model, and two domain classes, right? So for each one of those, which are three, you're going to have two screens, right? So for the user, you're going to have two screens. For the two domain classes, each one is going to get two screens. Okay, one of the screens is going to list all the records in that for that domain object for that object, right? So if it's a user, it will list all the users, right? So this might be called the screens might be called faculty list or student list or seller list or cook list or songwriter list or author list, whatever, right? It'll list all the humans, okay? So it says list all the records stored in a table. How each record is rendered, that's up to you how you want to render it. Okay, you can render it maybe as a row in a table. You can do that. So it could be just rows with a whole bunch of users. You could lay them out as a grid, right? Like a whole bunch of columns and rows. Or you could go as simple as a bullet list, right? You could go as simple as just a plain bullet list. Okay, so it's up to you, right? Don't go crazy. Keep it simple, right? Keep it functional, right? Don't spend too much time making it look beautiful. If you have time at the end, sure, make it presentable. But here we're not going to be grading you over how cool it looks, look and feel, or anything like that. It needs to be functional, right? If this were web dev or UI or whatever design, then yes, we would definitely take a look at that, but not here. It has to be functional. So it needs to list all the records. You can lay it out as any way you want. Again, the simplest is to just do a simple bullet list. Now, each record rendered should allow navigating to the edit screen, right? The edit screen is described here, right? So each record, right, whether it's a grid or a bullet list or tables, it should allow you to, somehow click it or select it, either a button or hyperlink or whatever. Okay, when you click on it, it should navigate to the edit screen. Make sense? Okay. Also, there should be some kind of create button, right, that would allow you to create a new of these things, right? If it's a user, then it will allow you to create a new user. If it's a new order, then you're allowed to create a new order or a new recipe or a new team or a new task or a new song, a new playlist, whatever it is, right? So they both, whether you click on an item in the list or you click on the create button, they both navigate to the edit screen. Right? They both navigate to the edit screen. Okay. Right. So the edit screen is going to allow to either create a new record or read, update, or remove an existing record. Okay. Right. So how do we know which one? Well, if in the list screen, right, if you clicked on an existing record, right, either in the list or in a grid or a table, if you clicked on one, then the edit screen, when you navigate to the edit screen, right, you're going to be looking at that record. Once you looked at it, you can either update the record, change something in that record, right? It's going to go fetch the data from the server. It's going to display it, or you can decide to remove that record. Okay. But if instead you clicked on the create button, if you click on the create button, then the edit screen is going to allow you to create a new record. So the fields will be blank. You can type in the new data for the new whatever, right? And then you click on save or insert or whatever. Okay. Okay. So how is it going to allow us to read? Right. So notice that the first three are about an existing record. Okay. Meaning if you clicked on, if in the list you clicked on an existing record, you're going to be reading that existing record, right? The edit screen provides a form that can render the values of all the fields on an existing record by providing its primary key. The primary key can be provided from selecting a record in the list screen. So from the list screen, you clicked on it, or if you prefer, notice it says and or, right, from a drop-down form. This might be easier for you, right? This might be easier for you. If you can't get the navigation working for some reason, you've been working at this, right? You've had long nights, and you're clicking on a row or bullet list, and then when it navigates to the edit screen, I just can't. I can't get the communication to work, right, between the two screens. That's a user interface issue, and I don't want you to waste too much time. If you can't get it to work exactly, that's fine, right? One of the options is that you can use a drop down, right? Or from a drop down, maybe that drop down, right, lists all the users or lists all the all the books or all the songs, whatever, and then you can just select that record, okay? And then the form populates and it shows you the values. You can pass it as a parameter in the URL, maybe if you're creating a web application, or if you're using Swing or Python or whatever, you might have some state variable, right, stored in your application. So you could set that global variable, right, and then this form can read it, right, and then fetch the record, right, and then render it in your form. Okay, yeah. So when you navigate to this screen, the form should allow you to be populated with values of a record that you selected either from a drop down or from the list screen. All right. So once the record is populated and you have it in the form, okay, the form is going to allow you to update that record, right? It'll have, input fields or drop downs or whatever, right? Or checkboxes where you can update the values of that user. You can change their password. You can change, the salary. You can change their, their awards, right? right? And then you can, and then it provides an update or save button, some kind of update or save button that sends the data back to the server, stores it in Mongo or MySQL, right? And then once it's done updating, it should navigate back to the list screen. It should go back to the list screen. I'm done. I'm done working with that document. I'm done. Okay. It also should allow you to delete while you're in the form and you're looking at the record, right? There should be some delete button that if you click on the delete button, poof, it's gone, right? Now, because the record is gone, it makes no sense to stay in the screen looking at a record that doesn't exist anymore, right? So it should go back. It should just go back to the list screen. Okay. And then if you had clicked on the create button, then the form should be empty, right? It should allow you to type in new values for a new record, right? And then click on insert or create or some button that gives you the capability of adding that data to the database. Okay. All right, there you have it. So this is the focus of this assignment, P2. And so basically, creating a connectivity to the database through some kind of data model and then a user interface. Now, this is a preliminary user interface. You can make it much more fancier, right? But it's not required, at least for P2. It's not required that that you go beyond this. Okay, you're welcome to go beyond, obviously, but this is the minimum. All right. So yeah, so I was hoping to demonstrate how you would go about it, right, with what we've covered in class. I'd like to show you how you could reuse what I've already given you, right, to implement something like this. Any questions? All right. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got. Okay, so here I was already playing around with a couple of things. I'm going to just put it. I'm going to stash it in a branch. Git branch. So I'm going to git status git add commit. Okay. Check out master. All right. Okay. Okie dokie. All right, so first of all, I'm going to create a brand new schema where we can do our work from scratch. So I'm going to create here a new schema, and I'm going to call it db underscore design underscore 03, right? Section 03. And say apply. Finish. Okay, and we're going to make that the default database. All right. Let me close all. All right, and there are no tables. Okay, and I'm going to update this, my properties file, right, so that I am pointing to this new schema. Hello. Say 02. And I'm going to put this in git branch. What do I have? Let's see, branch git checkout dot branch, and I'm going to call this P2 SP. So this is well 3200 SP21 section 3, and the assignment is P2 demo. Okay, so in that branch, we'll do all the work here. Right, and I'll commit it, and then you can take a look at it when I push it for you later today. All right, so let's start with creating a data model, right? So let's play around with our domain objects, right? And so I'll choose for my domain objects, I'll choose something in the domain of music, right? And so in the domain of music, the two domain objects might be playlists and songs. Okay, so let's create the data model. Right, I don't have a tables for it. Right, I'm gonna let my ORM do the work for me. Okay, so let's see, string templates, social users. Okay. Of course. All right, so I'm going to do all my work under music here. So I'll create a package. I'll say music. Okay, and under there, right, we'll create the models, and I'll do all my work here. Right, so let's create those two classes, right, and it'll be, for instance, song and we'll say playlist. Okay. All right. So let's keep it simple. Right. So a playlist might have what? Might have a an integer ID. It might have a name, and a playlist has many songs. Right. So private can have a list of songs. Okay. All right, let's see, what else do we need to do? We need to annotate this for this to be an entity, right? It's going to be a table, and the table is going to be mapped to following the naming convention. For SQL, it's a noun, it's plural, so playlists. Okay. Our primary key is going to be this integer here, and I'm going to also going to say that we want to auto increment this, right? So we're going to let it come up with the new values for each one of these primary keys. Perfect. Now we're going to generate the setters and getters for us. We don't have to deal with that. Let's say code generate, and all the setters and getters. Select all that. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're done here. We need to annotate this guy, right? We'd say that this is the playlist is on the one side of a one-to-many relationship. So this is one-to-many. Okay. We also need to do a mapped by, but we'll come back to it in a minute. Let's go back to song, and let's do the same thing for song. Right. We're going to do the properties here are very similar. So this is a private integer ID. This will have maybe the name of the song, and also this is going to be participating in a one-to-many relationship with playlists. So I need a reference back to the playlist to see who my parent is, right? So song. Okay. We're going to annotate this as an entity, right? So we can store it in a table, and we'll say that the name of the table, following SQL naming conventions, it's a noun and it's plural. We will annotate this as the primary key, and we'll annotate this so that we don't need to worry about the value of this. So I'll just let the database choose the values for me. We're also going to annotate this being on the many side of a one-to-many relationship. So that's many to one. Very good. So if we head over to the playlist, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. My parent is a playlist, not the song. Right, so playlist. Sorry, so this is playlist. There we go. Right. So my playlist. This song belongs to that playlist. Okay. So yeah, if I head over to playlist, I can now let the class know that it is being mapped or referenced, right, with from that field, which I believe was called playlist, right? This field right there, right? Spelled exactly like that. All right, I think we're pretty much done there. Let's we just have to generate a couple of setters and getters, and we're good to go. Okay, let's do okay. There we go. All right, so as far as data modeling is concerned, we're 90% done, right? We do need the repositories for each one of these, right? So let's do that. Let's create the repositories. We'll put them in a package called repositories. So this is the one. This is the objects that are going to give us the capability of creating all the low-level interfaces, right, and generic functions, right, to create the CRUD playlist. So we'll call this playlist repository. Okay. And so what do we have in repositories? So they are interfaces, right? They extend an existing implementation of a CRUD repository, right? So that we're going to inherit all the great stuff that the CRUD repository already does for us, right? We just need to configure it to tell it what it is that we're CRUDing. We're CRUDing playlists, and it also wants to know the primary key. Okay. We can override some of the stuff that is already implemented in CRUD repository, but let's keep the default implementation, right? We're going to do the same thing for the song, right? We'll create I'm just going to copy the playlist, and I'm going to call this song repository, song. Okay, and the only difference here is that instead of CRUDing playlists, we are CRUDing songs. There we go. All right, excellent. That's all. What else do we know? We need the DAO, right? We need to implement the DAOs, right? That's what's going to allow the it's going to allow the UI, right, to be able to talk to us. It's also going to use the low-level repository. It's going to wrap it around a higher-level API, right? So let's do that. Let's create another package, new package, and we'll call it the DAOs. So here we're going to create the playlist DAO. Okay, this is going to implement all the CRUD operations, right? Things such as public playlist, create playlist. Okay. Return null for now. It should allow us to do all the CRUD operations, right? Allow us to retrieve all the playlists, right, with functions such as find all playlists. Okay, let's return null for now. It should have the return an individual playlist, right? Find playlists by ID. If you provide for me the ID. Okay, let's return null for now. Basically, I'm following the recipe here, right? Create model, find all model, find by ID, update, delete. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here in DAO. What else? We need to be able to update, right? All the CRUD operations. That's the create. The two finder methods are the read, and then we do update, right? So public playlists, update playlists, right? And we need the ID of the playlist that we're updating, and we need the new playlist data, right? New playlist. Okay. And let's return null now. And finally, we want to be able to remove. So delete playlist Actually, no, we're not going to return anything. And we need the data type of the ID of the playlist that we're deleting. All right, basically, yeah, this is all of it, right? Okay. All right. Let's implement. We know we need to do also the song DAO, right? Let's leave that for now. Let's see. There's a question in the chat. Let's see. What do we do if it is a composite key, say made up of string and an integer? Yeah. So this would be a new type, right? It would be my composite key. Okay. So if your composite key is of a string and an integer, then for instance, in your model, say your playlist had a key, you create a new class and you call it the playlist key, new class. And here you put the two keys, right? Well, one might be private string key 1, right? And private integer key 2, right? You provide all the setters and getters. Code generate all the setters and getters. Okay. And then in the playlist, your keys, this key here, find, where is it? This key here, right? Obviously, you don't have an integer anymore. You have to have a private playlist key. Public combo of music models. Where did I put my public key? Playlist key. What? Public class. Private. Oh, it only created 2 of them. Why didn't I create the other one? Oh, maybe I didn't select it. Code generate. Setter and getter. Both. There we go. All right, excellent. And you would have also the setter and getter for this. Refactor code, generate the setter and getter for that playlist, for that key. Okay. Anyway, this is goes way beyond what we'll do. If you want to discuss this, we can take a look at it together and explore that. All right. But this is much more complicated. Complicates things quite a bit. And right, if you're going that way, then reach out to me and we can take a look at it together. Perhaps you don't need to go that complicated. Okay. There you go. All right, so let's see if we generate something in the database. Right, if I run this, let's see what happens. Let's see if it gives me some error. Let's see. It did give us errors. Password looks like our password is not what we want. Let's take a look at the properties. Oh, this I'm going to use my your username. I actually have a user called your username and your password. Let's try again. Let's see. Design unknown database DB design 02. Did I not create it? Oh, 03. Sorry, 03. I hate computers. It all was right. Okay, there we go. So it looks like it created all these tables, right? Even the ones we had there from before. But the ones that I'm interested in, let's refresh. Look at all these tables that I created. And the only ones that I really care about is this playlist and the song here. Okay, let's see what we got for playlists. Okay, it looks like we don't have any playlists. All right, so let's create just a couple of playlists. So we'll call this maybe P1 and P2. And we'll say apply. And let's see, it looks like we have some playlists. How about songs? And the playlists are 1 and 2. Those are the IDs. Okay, let's look at the songs. Okay, there we have. So we have no songs. Let's create song, let's see, song 1, song 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we'll say that the first 2 songs are for playlist 1, and the other 3 songs are in playlist 2. Okay, we're gonna apply. There we go. All right. Okay. So we want to be able to see if we can retrieve this data. All right. So let's focus on implementing first, being able to retrieve the data. All right. So let's go back to the DAO. Let's see. So let's not look at create playlist just yet. Let's take a look at find all playlists. Right. So it looks like we should be able to implement this. Okay. So we implemented how? Using the repository, right? We bring in the repository. So that's the playlist repository. There it is. Okay. And then with the implementation of find all playlists is simple, right? It's just repository dot find all, right? So again, this is very generic, and we're going to cast it. It's very generic find all. So the DAO wraps the low level implementation, right, into an API that's a little more high level, and it's explicit to your domain. So it's using a domain less implementation, right? That's very generic, and it makes it your domain. Okay. All right. So how do we use this? How do we use this from the outside, right? I mean, we could do it from the console. We could compile it into Java Swing code. There's different ways. I'm going to use React.js for the front end, right? So the way React.js invokes these things is through HTTP, through an HTTP request, right? And that's easy. We can just make this a REST controller, and we're going to convert this into an auto wire, right? And playlist, we're going to map it to a GET request. Right, so that if I ask for API / playlists, right, it's going to invoke that function, right? It's going to retrieve all the playlists, and it's going to return to me as an array of playlists. Good. All right, let's try it out. One thing that I need to not forget, when I get to the playlist and I retrieve the list of songs, the songs are going to want to go back to the playlist, to the parent playlist, right? So that's going to put me into an endless loop, right? So I'm going to stop that by saying to ignore, to do not get into that infinite loop of trying to go from the playlist to the song, and then the song back to the playlist, from the playlist down to the song, and then back to the playlist. So avoid that. Also, another thing that probably going to run into is that this server, this Java server is going to be running, I believe the default is port 8080, and you can see that here when it's running here in the terminal, that it should be running at port 8080. There it is. Yeah, running port 8080. My React application is not going to be running at port 8080, so it's going to give me a security breach, or it's going to give me a security problem, right? And I'm going to say that it's okay, don't worry, it's still me, right? I'm going to turn that off by allowing CrossOrigin, right? I'm going to turn that on like that. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's now let's see. So between playlists and music, that is a one-to-many relationship. Right? Right. On music, you are on the many side, and the playlist is on the one side. So I've given you as a sample something that you can use to implement the one side of a one-to-many. Okay, and let's see. If we go to React, let's create, right, a new directory where we're going to put everything we need for music. So I'll call this music. All right. So I'm going to use the code that I gave you for users, right? I'm going to for the social networking part, right? I'm going to use some of this stuff here. I'm going to copy these 3 things. I'm going to copy these three over here, copy, and I'm going to put them right there. Okay, let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got. Just close these. Close all. Okay. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in here. Most of it you don't care about, right? Okay, so I'm gonna just change the title to be this music. We can leave alone. This we can totally leave it alone just like that. We are going to be implementing here, right? We need to implement 2 screens for each domain object, right? And 1 and 2 screens for each user object, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to create directories for each one of them, right? So for the playlist, I'm going to create a directory, and this is where I'm going to put my two screens in there. And I'm going to also create another directory where I'm going to put my songs in there. I guess I like this to be plural, playlists. Okay. Okay. And the 2 screens that are going to be implemented in the following JavaScript files is going to be playlist. We're going to have playlist list. Okay. JavaScript. All right. And the other one is going to be the editor, right? So it's going to be JavaScript, and this is going to be playlist editor. So these are going to be my 2 screens, right? And for the songs, it's going to be similar. Right? I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that just yet. So in my index.html, I need to load all my files. And they're listed. Here's an example of them, right? My 2 screens are really under playlists, and we have here playlist editor, and we have playlists, and we have the playlist list. Okay, we need those 2. Okay, later on we'll need songs as well. What else do I need? I also need to be able to navigate to these guys, right? We can put some dummy content in there for now. We'll need we'll say const play list editor. It's going to return now h1 playlists. Okay, and we're going to, that's the editor, and the playlist. So that's the editor, right? It's the editor. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to put it in the list here, and this is the playlist list. Playlist list. That's a silly name. Playlists, just playlists. So this is the playlist editor. Playlist editor. And this is the playlist. Okay, excellent. We're done with that. Our index file is going to have, we want to be able to navigate. Right? We want to navigate to the playlist lists. Is that what I called it? What did I call it? This one, playlist list. And I want to be able to navigate to the playlist editor. Playlist editor. We need to import them. We need to import the playlist list from the playlist list. And we need to import the playlist editor from the playlist editor. And to import those 2. And we're going to map to navigate the URL. right? If you type at the URL playlist or playlists, you'll see the playlist. If you instead navigate to playlist followed by an ID of a particular playlist, then you will see the editing. You'll be able to edit that particular playlist. Okay. What else do we need? What else do we need? Let's see. We need, I guess we need some links now. We'll call this maybe put an H1 here that says music. Music. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it just to get started. Just to get started, index, yada, 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 module, blah, blah, blah. Playlist this. I think those are good. All right, let's try it out. Let's run this. Let's see where it breaks. Let's see if there's any errors. Oh, it has lots of errors. Console. Oh my goodness. Fails to load. Blah 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 blah. The server. Yada 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 yada. Spring template. Yada yada yada. Playlists. You can't find what? Playlists. Did I misspell it? Playlists. Lists. Oh, I must have misspelled it. Playlist. Oh, here I use singular, and probably here I use plural. I think. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. Let's see. Expected invalid. Yada yada yada. React. Yada 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 yada. Built-in app render. Yada yada yada. Xn man valid. Blah 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 blah. React import got object. You likely yada yada yada. App. Wait, let me see. Here's my index. My app. Music. Playlist. Let me just see if I just remove that. Music. Okay, that's good. So I'm wrong with one of these. Maybe let me try. Okay, doesn't like that one. Exact true. Okay, so this wrong. Something's wrong with my playlist list. What is wrong with my playlist list? Const yada 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 equal that. Return. That looks right. What's wrong with that? Let's see. What's different between that? I am returning. Oh, I need to export it. I need to export it. Export default playlist. There we go. And same thing I need to do for the editor. I need to export it. Export default playlist editor. There we go. Okay. All right. Excellent. I'll probably make this a little smaller, H2, and make this H2. Okay. And I should be able to navigate to. So here in the playlist, I want to go and fetch all my playlists, right? And does that even work? Does that even work? Can I actually fetch the playlist? So presumably the server made available the data for the playlist where? According to my DAO, the playlist should be available where? At API playlists. Let's try that, right? At the server running at 8080, right? Let's see if that's true. Local host 8080 at API playlists, playlists. Did I misspell it? API playlists, API playlists, playlists. Let me copy it. Why not. Let's see, do I get an error here? Console failed to load, yada, yada, yada. Is it 8080? It is 8080, right? Is this running? Wait, is this running? It is running. Running, and are you listening to port 8080? You are. Why are you not turning? Localhost 8080. API playlists. Get mapping. REST controller. Playlist down. Playlist down. Why are you not worky? Dev tool, yada, yada, yada. Localhost API playlists. See any, is this code going to be made available? Yes, all this code is going to be made available to you when I fix it. Localhost API playlist. Wait a minute, why is this not working? Play. Spelling something. This application has no explicit mapping or error, so you are seeing this as a fallback. Okay, and it says 404. Hardwired. Playlist down. REST controller. CrossOrigin. Let me run it again. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I must have not run from the last one. There we go. Yeah, there's our data. Okay, there's our data. All right, excellent. So let's go fetch it. So I want to be able to call this. I want to be able to invoke this right from our user interface. I noticed that we have the 1, 2 playlists, right? And each playlist has the songs, right? The data is there. Perfect. So I want to do this programmatically. So how do we do this? Okay. So the way we're going to do this is that in my playlist, right? We want to go fetch this information programmatically. So we're going to do that in a separate file. Right? We're going to say playlist service. That's a good practice, right? That to put everything that has to do with communicating with the server in a separate file. Okay. So we want to have a function called find all playlists. And this is going to go fetch to our URL, that URL. It's going to fetch that data. It's going to parse it, parse the response that comes from the server. It's gonna parse the JSON that comes from the server. And that's it. That's all it's going to do. All right, we're going to export this to whoever wants to use it from outside of this file. Who wants to use this? Well, probably my playlist. My playlist here wants to use that. Okay, so it's going to import it. So it's going to import the playlist service from the file playlist service. There it is, and we want to use it right here. We want to use it. We want to use the function that we just declared, find all playlists. So how do we use it? How do we call it, right? And then populate this. Okay. Well, we're going to use this technique here. We're going to say import use state and use effect from React. This is all magic. You don't need to know about it. Actually, I can just say const. And here we're going to create a variable where that I can hold the playlists. We'll say const playlists and set playlists. Use the state. It's going to be an array of playlists. And we're going to unload. We're going to invoke using the service, find all playlists. We're going to get all the playlists. And we're going to set playlists. Okay. Now we have playlists from our server. Right. Now we want to render it. Let's render it. Let's see what the server comes back with. Let's print out the whole JSON data that comes back from the server. Right. Playlists. Oh, this is plural. And this is plural. Okay. We just created a brand new file, playlist service. We need to load it in our index file. We need to load it here, playlist service. What do I call it? Service, right? Yeah. Okay, let's see if this blows up. We can take a look at the data communication with the server. And let's see, did it go fetch the playlists? Looks like we got something in the console. Type error, blah, 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 blah. Find all of undefined of line number 7. Okay, so we tried to call this, but it did not find it. Why did you not find it? So import, blah, 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 playlist service, find all playlists. Did we not export it? Playlist service. So we did declare it. We imported it. There's a function. We were exporting it. Did I misspell it? Playlist service. There it is. That's right. Find all playlists. Find it. Final playlist undefined. Import playlist from yada yada yada. Am I doing it differently than the user? Let's see. Use copy, blah, 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 blah. Let me see. Wait a minute. Let me stop this for a second. Terminal. Git status. Let me push this. Let me commit this for a second. Git add. Git commit. Added playlists and songs. Okay, git branch. Git check out solutions. See what I'm missing. Let's see. No, the import looks right. The import looks right. Oh, the import needs to be the first line. Okay, I think so. Yeah, that's probably what's going on. Okay, let's go back to Git. Check out music. Music playlist here. Oh, it is the first line. It is the first line. What do you give me errors for? Oh, it worked. Oh, you know what? Probably I was cached. Anyway, notice that the data is coming back from the server, right? This is the JSON data that is coming back from the server. We probably only just want the name of the playlist. We don't really care about the other stuff. Okay. So in the playlist, probably what we want to do Oh, okay. Yeah. What we want to do probably, right, is we want to oh, okay. So this is as far as I was going, where this is the actual solution that I'm trying to reach at. This was me trying it out before class. So yeah, I did it right over here. I guess I might have not done it right here. Let's see, git branch. Let me get back to your branch. Let's see what I did wrong. In the playlist. Oh yeah, so see the I am not importing it as the first line. That's what it is. Probably. Let's see. I'm still getting errors. Type found the find. Damn. Why is it not loading it? Oh, the order matters. Index.html. Right here. Yeah, this needs to be loaded before, right, so they can find it before you import it. There we go. Okay, that's the raw data that is coming from the server. Okay. All right, so let's render it. Let's render it in the list. And the way we can render it is as follows. It could be just a simple UL. And then we can iterate over that array of playlists and say playlist.map. It's going to iterate and going to give us each playlist one at a time. And we're going to render as follows, just as a bullet list. Right, and a bullet list is as follows. And we'll just render the name of the playlist, playlist.name. There we go, bullet list. Okay, you can make this a little prettier, but it's absolutely not required. Okay, all right. So then we want to be able to navigate according to this, according to the navigation that we have in our index, right? If it's slash playlists like we have here, if we append the ID, then we're going to navigate to playlist editor, right? And so the way we're going to do that is that we're going to make this a hyperlink out of this. I'm going to say I'm going to navigate link. Okay, I'm going to navigate to the following expression: playlists, playlist, followed by the ID of the playlist, so playlist.id. Okay, and we need to import link from React router. It's called. Let's see that if we hover over it, we should be able to see the hyperlink. Okay, notice that I clicked on it, right? I click on it and notice that it navigates to the playlist editor. See that? The playlist editor should be able to load that particular playlist so that we can edit, maybe change the name, for instance, or delete it. Okay. So to do that, I need to go fetch the information from the server, right, for that playlist. Right. So for that, let's head over back to our DAO. So let's head back to our DAO so that we can implement in music. Right. We should be able to implement the find playlist by ID. Okay, and for that we can use the repository again, which has a find by ID. Pass in the ID, and we're going to cast this. Can we cast it? No, I'm going to say dot get. All right, so that's going to allow us to retrieve a particular retrieve one playlist if we know their ID. Let's try it out first. So this is all the playlists. Say I want playlist number 1. I can say playlist followed by 1. And that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, because we didn't export it. Just like we did here, we need to also map it to some playlist ID, right? Playlist ID, and we're gonna read that from the path variable. And there was an assignment that walked you how to do this, right? Let's restart. Let's see if it works. There it is, number 1 or number 2, right? We have either one. So now that we have that, we can go back in the editor and build that. So let's go back to the editor. Let's see, where's the editor? It's a playlist editor. It's empty. There's nothing in there. What are we trying to do? We have to retrieve the playlist by its ID. So we need to generate this URL programmatically. From where? Right, we do that all in the service. The service does all the communication. Right, so let's implement that. Const find playlist by ID, and we're going to provide an ID, and we need to generate a URL that looks like this, right? But this is going to be a parameter ID. We're going to parse the response. Okay, and we're going to make this available outside. And then back in the editor, we can now do the same thing as before. We're going to import the playlist service from playlist service. And so when we first load, we need to parse the ID. We need to parse the ID. There it is, 1. See that? We need to parse that from the URL and use that to go fetch that particular playlist. Okay. All right. So how do we parse it? So to parse it, we're going to use the following. Use params, I think it is, from React router DOM. And so we can parse out the, what do we call it? We call it ID. Let's make it a better name, PID maybe. Okay, so we're going to parse out the PID from the params. And let's see if that actually works. Let's render it right here. See if that actually works, PID. Let's render it. There it is, 1. See that? If I go back and I click on 2, there's 2. All right, so I'm definitely able to pass the ID over to the screen. So what do we do with that 1 or 2? We need to go and invoke this guy, right? Find playlist by ID on load when we first load. So the way we detect that we're loading is that we use effect. That's how we detect that we're loading from React. So we're going to say use effect. So on load, this is basically on load. We're going to use the playlist service, find playlist by ID, we pass the play ID. We say, then this is the playlist. And for now, we're just going to do a console log of the playlist. See if we can retrieve the data, just print it out to the console. See that if that even works. So let's look at the console. Let's clear it out. Let's re-render it. There it is. Looks like we were able. There it is. The console. There's the P1, P2. We go back and go to P1. Notice that indeed we got P1. So definitely we can retrieve the data in this screen. We need to store it somewhere in a local variable. So for that, we need use state to declare a local variable. And we'll call the local variable playlist, set playlist, use effect, use state, and we'll initialize the object as empty. So here we're going to just populate that and say set playlist, playlist. And here we can just render that object just to see if we got the whole thing as playlist ID. There it is. Not PID, sorry, playlist, the whole object. There it is. So we got the playlist for playlist 1, about 2. There it is. Okay, so we always can get either 1 or 2. Notice that here we already have the songs, right? We don't really, we could just render the playlist and just the songs inside the playlist, right? We could do that. Let's render the fields. The fields that we want is what? The ID, we want the name, right? Basically, those are the only 2 fields, right? And we want to render them as input fields that we can edit. Okay. So let's do that. Let's create an input field. That is going to render the value. So this is going to be value is going to be playlist.PID. And maybe we put like a label here, ID. And maybe another input field here with name, and this is playlist name. Maybe put a break line here. Okay, we got 2 input fields. It looks pretty ugly. We could make it a little prettier by adding some classes. You don't have to, but let me just show you. Class name, you can say that is a form control. This we're going to make it a little bit more presentable. It's a little prettier. And right, so the other thing that we might want to do here is that maybe you want to remove the playlist, right? So for instance, at the bottom, you would have a whole bunch of buttons, right? Button delete. Okay. And to delete, right, we need to tell the server to delete. So how do we tell the server to delete? Well, first on the server needs to be able to handle delete. So here's a delete. There's a delete, okay? And we can say, get, we can make this available, get mapping, and this would be maybe, API playlists, and then PID, and then I don't know, /delete. How's that? Okay. We parse out the integer just like we did for here, and then we can just remove. We can say we can use the repository.delete by ID and pass the ID. So that should blow away our playlist, right? Let's restart the server. So this button, the playlist button, where we have where's the editor? This button, the delete button, needs to be able to invoke this delete. And this delete, when we invoke it, it needs to be able to invoke this URL right here. And where do we do the communication? As always, we do it in the service, right? In the service, we do const delete playlist, the ID of the playlist, and it's going to look very much like this. It's not going to have a response because the DAO has a void, so it's not returning anything. So there's nothing for us to parse. So yeah, I'm not going to do anything. So it's that /delete, right? That's the pattern that we have here, right? ID and then delete. Okay. We export this. We make this. We're going to export this so that the button in the editor needs to invoke this delete button needs to invoke that delete. So let's put that in a function here. const delete playlist. And so I'm going to just call it from this delete over here. We'll say on click, delete playlist. This is going to call this function. What is it going to do? It's going to use the service, right? It's going to use the playlist service dot delete playlist, and I need to pass it the ID, which is inside of the playlist object here. This guy, right? Which has the ID. Okay. Well, let's see if it works. To try it out, I'm going to create a dummy playlist. I don't want to delete the ones I have here. So let's go to playlist. I'm going to put here p delete. So I'm going to apply, finish. So here I'm going to go back. There's my p delete. See that? If I click on it, I'm in p delete. And my delete button is not here. Where's my delete button? Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's see. Let me clear that. I'm going to do delete. Didn't like that. Access to fetch, blah, 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 blah. Has been blocked, yada, yada, yada. No access control origin. Why does it not like my delete? Did it delete? It did delete. What's wrong with my deletes? Delete playlist, blah, blah, blah. It's going to do the fetch, return, and on the DAO, we get, is it right? API, playlist, ID, and delete. API, playlist, PID, and delete. And PID is an integer. Am I sending an integer? 3. Yeah. API, playlist, 3, delete. What don't you like? Network. Course error. Sometimes it's just that it doesn't like the data that I'm sending. Localhost 8080, API, playlist, 3, delete. Okay, so we have origins, delete. Did I restart the server? Let's see. Refresh. Let me see, network console. Let's clear this out. Delete. No. Error failed type in promise. I guess I need to return. I think it's expecting something to be returned. Let me return an integer. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, no, let's return 1. Return 1. Let's see. Let's see if that helps. That delete? No. No course to fetch the resource with course disabled. No access control allow origin. Header is present in the request. Playlist 3. All right, I'll debug this and I'll make it available later today. So you can take a look at it and play around with it yourself. Return fetch. Is it oh, probably you want a .then, don't you? Okay, let's delete. No, same thing. All right, I'll debug it and post it and make it available for you guys so that you can use, any or all of it or none of it if you don't want it. But yeah, feel free to use it or not. Okay. Any questions before we leave? Not at all? All right. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.